Welcome to the meme edition of TIFU. Keep your eyes on the screen during the stories to see what I meme. Yeah, that was bad. So, without further ado, let's get started. My ex-boyfriend's mom had her eye makeup tattooed on, and she sent her kids, who lived with her at the time, to the store to get a couple of things. It wasn't until my ex and his brother was at the checkout line that they started receiving funny looks from the clerk. Then he realized that they were two lone men buying nothing but cucumbers and Vaseline, which is what their mom wanted to soothe her eyes. My ex panicked, and he blurted out, No, it's okay. He's my brother," while gesturing to his brother. Well, that didn't make anything any better. He just stopped talking, figuring there was nothing he could do to salvage the situation, and just accepted the judgment. I used to work with a lady who would do some really strange and silly things. One of her finest mistakes? When she ordered some envelopes for the company to post mail. She was having some problems getting the envelopes to stick shut. No matter how vigorous she licked them, they would not stay shut. So she returned them to the supplier to get another box to replace. Then the same thing went wrong. Once she explained that the glue wasn't working and that they would not stick when she licked them, this is when the supplier informed her that she's been licking self-sealing envelopes and that she had been licking off the glue. This happened a couple of weeks ago. I was at a party and I saw a girl across the room. She was wearing a skirt, holding a drink with one hand and the other hand in her pocket. I saw her skirt and I thought to myself, that skirt has pockets? A lot of women complain about skirts not having pockets. So I was like, well, that's very progressive. So a bit later, I decided to comment on her skirt, how it has pockets and how that's a great thing. I went up to her and I said, "Wow, I like your skirt. You hardly see them with pockets. That's really nice." Then she looked at me confused. "What? My skirt doesn't have pockets? Why would you think that? I saw you had one of your hands in a pocket earlier." Her face went bright red and revealed that her hand was amputated, and what I thought was in her pocket was actually a stump resting on her hip. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." But luckily, she thought it was funny, and that she never heard anyone comment like that before. I'm still dying a little bit inside after that. This actually happened a few months ago with my wife. The Boy Scouts were selling popcorn at the time, and we would always buy popcorn, or whatever else the Boy Scouts were selling. The reason why we do this is because my son was once a Boy Scout, and he was a great salesman. He won a lot of prizes for his sales, so the Boy Scouts in our neighborhood could always count on us buying a box or two, whoever showed up at our door. We have 3 dogs. 2 of them go into a barking frenzy whenever someone rings the doorbell. To combat this, we keep a water gun by the door, since being squirted a couple of times shut them up. One day the doorbell rings. The dogs go into a frenzy, and my wife notices that the squirt gun is not by the door. So she yells, "It's the Boy Scouts! Get the gun!" My son was in the other room. When she opened the door, the 2 Boy Scouts at the door were terrified. They looked like they were about to bolt, but they calmed down when they saw the small purple water gun in her hand. I wouldn't be surprised if they were already wet. This happened on Thanksgiving around 15 years ago. I was still a young lad, like 21. My family always went to my uncle's house. He had a big basement with the light switch on the top of the stairs. Me, my brother, my sister, and my 8 other cousins always played a game called Monster in the Bathroom. This game is just hide and seek, but with the lights off, and the people would have to make a noise when the seeker asked them to. Also, we never play it in an actual bathroom. I have no idea why we called it that. So we play a few games. The lights start on while people find a good place to hide. The speaker stands upstairs and counts down. When they're finished counting, they turn off the lights and make their way down the stairs to find people. My oldest cousin was the seeker of this game, and he's kind of known as a funny one, and I had an opportunity to out-humor him. So he was walking down the stairs. Suddenly I got this urge to fart. I could tell this was a mammoth one, cause I could just feel it. So I was dying for him to just ask us to make a noise. Finally, he got to the bottom of the stairs. Then he screams loudly, "Make a noise!" Trying to get a laugh out of everyone, and not to be outdone, I released the loudest, wettest fart I've ever released in my young life. Every single person burst out laughing in hysterical laughter, including myself and the seeker. After the laughing died down, I realized my mistake. My legendary fart was actually a shart. I had wet crap dripping down my legs. And the other mistake was that even though everyone else stopped laughing after about 30 seconds, I couldn't stop. As a matter of fact, I laughed so hard that I wet myself. My cousin immediately caught me, and it was revealed that I crapped myself and peed my pants. The game ended right there, because I had to go upstairs and borrow pants and underwear from my cousin. Now, every single year, when my family arrives to Thanksgiving, every cousin comes up to me and says, "Hey, make a noise!" This has not gotten old for them, and unfortunately, I'm about to arrive at my uncle's house. I will undoubtedly be asked to make a noise, as it is Thanksgiving tradition, probably up until the day that I die. So this happened about 6 years ago. A little piece of me died that day, and I cringe every time I think about it. So I was a 27-year-old male, working construction. I'm comfortable with my sexuality, but the trade is inherently very macho and homophobic. This is important later. So anyways, I've been looking for work for about half a year, and finally landed a job with a local contractor. We seemed to get along pretty well, so I was looking forward to working with him. Well, being fresh out of trade school, I was naive, and I had a toolbox chock full of gimmicky tools and apparatuses that's supposed to make life easier. But any veteran tradesman would know that it's absolutely useless crap. One such example, my tool belt had a new and improved hammer loop, which was a partial loop with 2 spring-loaded arms. They look like pinball paddles, so you could slip the hammer into the loop instead of sliding it from the top. So amazing. So I showed up for my first day decked out of my future age carpentry gadgets and about 20 pounds of clothes because it was the dead of winter. After exchanging pleasantries with the new crew, I was shown where I'd be working, about 30 feet up on a narrow scaffolding plank with my new boss. That was no biggie. So him and I scaled the scaffolding and began working. At some point, my boss needs to get around me, so I scoot to the edge of the plank and he starts sliding behind me, and I hear a click. The front of his belt promptly gets lodged into my hammer holder. Like I said, we were wearing a lot of clothes, so it took a minute to see why we were stuck. Balls to butts. We were embarrassingly chuckling before trying to free ourselves. My hammer was in the loop already, so was his part of the belt as well. There wasn't enough room for my little arms to fold back and release us from this nightmare. For about 15 minutes, we shared that intimate moment on the scaffold, spooning each other, before another coworker came around the corner. This was the boss's stepson, so after asking us what we were doing, proceeded to take a wedding's worth of pictures while laughing hysterically. I had had enough. I took my pliers and ripped off the arms of the hammer holder, free at last. We worked the rest of the day in silence. I promptly went home and threw my belt into the wood burner. If you ever want to break the ice with a new employer, just force them to spoon you for the first day. Yeah, because that's not awkward. This happened about 2 years ago. I was in the Army and designated as one of my unit's grenadiers. Regardless of role, every 6 months, we're expected to attend a training session and to make sure that we're still proficient with our weapon. This was my second time firing the relatively new M320, which replaced the older Undersling 203. Both fired the same round, and both essentially operated the same way. Because this was a training experiment, we were only using inert Cheeto rounds, named that way because of their orange powdery explosion upon impact. Despite the inert, these things can still mess you up. Despite this, I thought it was best not to wear gloves. I grab a dozen or so rounds and head to my lane. The first 4 rounds are our 0 to make sure we understand how things work. Every time I pull the trigger, a cloud of orange powder erupts right where it should. I feel like hot stuff, and 1 round of the first qualification table is ready. I post up behind my little knee-high wall, take aim and fire. Immediately I feel a searing pain in my left hand. The hand holding the foregrip of the weapon, I figured I probably slipped and probably hit it on the wall that was directly ahead of me, so I looked down to check it out. All appeared normal, and the rest of the now cleared weapon was against the wall. I tried to see where my round hit, but I didn't see any powder from my lane. I looked down again and noticed for some reason I was absolutely covered in orange powder. Before my eyes, my left middle finger and ring finger flay open, and then it hits me. I really messed up. I had just shot my hand. Before I had another thought, the medic on duty hustled me over to the Humvee, designated for idiots like me. In what feels like seconds, my hand turns into a bloody mess. I was still fully coherent, thanks to the adrenaline, or whatever else. Because it was my buddy as a designated medic, I asked how bad it was. They might need to amputate. Oh great, awesome. We arrive at the base hospital, and my commander and chaplain somehow beat us there, because I think they're sick, because of morbid curiosity, and they wanted to see. My boss takes some pictures, and suddenly my hand was probably in the tons of what not to do presentations. I had a fractured joint in my left ring finger, 2 major lacerations along my middle ring finger, and some scorched flesh, major burn damage, and some lasting arthritis. Worst of all, the orange powder essentially tattooed into my skin. I got to keep all of my fingers. Apparently, if it hit anywhere higher on my finger, amputation would have been a serious consideration. Thank God, right? Yay me. We live in South Africa. Most of my family carries pepper spray, most of the time, because there's rampant crime in our country. One of the types of pepper sprays comes in a thumb-sized canister, which makes it easy to carry in public. One day my grandma walks into my mom's room, and immediately my mom starts coughing, and her eyes starts to tear up. My grandma tells her mom that she found some perfume in her bag, and she thinks it's expired. Because her eyes don't feel normal, she forgot that it was pepper spray, and she sprayed it on her neck like someone would do with perfume. The weirdest part is that everyone around her were coughing and wheezing, and she seemed perfectly fine despite the fact her eyes were watering and a bit red. We were concerned at the time, but everything turned out fine, and now we have a good laugh every time someone brings it up. As a screw-up, I'm committing one of the greatest social taboos, as revealing a secret which has been zealously guarded throughout the ages. It is correlated with childbirth, in that just and postmenopausal women won't dare to tell an expected mother how truly agonizing childbirth is. So no man in his 50s would traumatize a man in his youthful prime with the fears of anatomical horror that's soon to come. But times have changed, and new technology places men in grave danger. So now, you must know of the biological atrocity in order to avoid my disastrous mistake. Sometimes around midlife, men's hair follicles undergo a revolting mutation. While hair atop of one's head thins and drops, new hair grows in places you never imagined. Bristle stiff hair grows outside and inside the ears, and up the nostrils. Eyebrows become bushy, unruly, and coarse. Your hair downstairs turns gray and scraggly. I tease you not. All of these hairs grow alarmingly fast, and require constant attention, lest you become the guy with a bunny paw sticking out of his ear. Their eradication is a battle that men wage stoically and silently through the second half of their lives, and, as with any battle, there are casualties. Now, on to the screw-up. I found a great nose trimmer in the, as advertised on TV, aisle of the CVS. It looks like and operates like a miniature hedge trimmer. It's virtually impossible to cut yourself, but mows down the hair. Yes. Yesterday I was trimming my ear, my nose, and my eyebrows right after a shower, so I was happy with the results, so I decided to try it downstairs. It worked great, but I went a bit overboard, and I pretty much shaved almost everything. It had a new look, but my bushy taint was a testicular neckbeard, and it had to go. So I positioned a makeup mirror on the bathroom floor, and lay down and spread eagle, knees up, so I could see and trim everything well. Where just a few wispy hairs prevailed, unbeknownst to me, a virtual forest had arisen. Worst of all, my butthole has sprouted a Bharat mustache. Butt brow. With the trusty nose hair trimmers in hand, I prepare for battle. The butt brow had to go first. I began on the left and quickly decimate the bunghole caterpillar. I moved decisively to the right, preparing to take down the butt brow, 2 with one swift stroke, close to the skin. However, that was not to be. Instead, my butt hairs wrapped around the trimmer blade like Rapunzel using a superheated curling iron. iron, pulling the device tight against my skin and jamming the blade. The hairs were being ripped from my flesh, and the pain was excruciating. No matter how I tried, I couldn't remove the trimmer. Wiggling it tugged at the hairs more. Restarting it was a double down that I lost. The hairs were wound even tighter against the blade. I frog walked naked to the bedroom, one hand holding the trimmer tied between my butt cheeks so I could search for the cuticle trimmers. No luck. I did, however, have a carpet knife. Now, unbearable pain breeds desperation, so I decided to grab it and give it a shot. I go back to the bathroom floor. I try in vain to cut myself free, nicking the tenderest of flesh twice and drawing the first blood of battle. After a suitable prayer, I grabbed tightly on the trimmers and committed to a Brazilian wax style, ripping off the trimmer blade as well as a butt brow net trap. Blinding pain left me curled fetal, hyperventilating, while blood slowly trickled down my butt cheek. I decided to share my mistake to expose one of life's cruelest secrets in the best interest of mankind, so that others may avoid falling into the prey of technological wonders of the as seen on TV hair removal tools. Young men of Reddit, I beg you to heed my warning. Don't do what I did and spare your butt the hairpocalypse of pain. Thank you for joining me and allowing me to assault your eyes with memes and terrible pun. Next thing I'm going to be doing is probably a facepalm, and then I'm probably going to start focusing a little bit more on neckbeard stuff, because I really miss doing that. So stay tuned for that. I want to give a big thanks to my patrons. If you want to become a patron, just follow the link down below. Well, you guys have a great day, and just remember, have fun with your failures, or they'll have fun with you.